Hello, my name is Scot Thompson and I am the co-founder of Disc Mill Records. I noticed that there are a lot of record labels that I really like that don't have documentaries about how they started, how they progressed, and how they got to their level of success and things of that nature. So, being that today, being February 27th, 2019, and we have submitted the payment for our filing as an LLC. I wanted to take this opportunity to pause and reflect on the last 4 years that this went from concept to LLC. I'm going to have Dave interview, speak about what he does, how we got involved, things of that nature. I'm going to try to make as much sense as I can, but I did build tractors for 10 hours today and tired, so we'll see how this goes. So Disc Mill Records started in 2015 in the kind of winterish. It was, about 4 years ago now. And at that time, it was coming around on spring, which, it's going to be March by the end of the week. So, yeah, I would say it was around this time that it started being solidified as an idea. I came up with the name because I was working at the Falk Seed Farm in Murdoch, Minnesota, and they're a seed farm, so we process seeds. There's machines that sort them, and there was a machine there called a disc mill, and I didn't know what a disc mill was, and I still don't entirely, but we didn't use it very often. I just remember it being in one of the rooms that we process seeds in, and Sean Moss was the guy I was working with, and he tried to explain it to me basically as like a seed sorting machine, like had little slots and bigger seeds would go through and smaller ones would get kicked off to one side or something. I don't know. But when I heard the name of the machine, the disc mill, to me that was a CD machine or a record machine or something. I'm like, a disc mill? Like, that doesn't sound like a seed sorting machine. That sounds like a music thing. And it gets its name because it has discs in it that have different sizes of holes for filtering the seeds out or whatever. But I wasn't working there anymore in 2015. I think I was working at Holiday at the time. And I had a record that I had worked on back in 2010, which was called Drinks, Dreams, and Songs. It's right here, actually. And so this record was the first album that it's the only record that I've ever manufactured. And when I wanted to press it, I decided that I wanted to put a label on the back of it. And, it was 5 years later. But we decided to call it Disc Mill Records. Well, I guess I did. And I asked my cousin Jake, whose artist name is JT Fremont, to do a logo for me. He went to school for graphic design, so he made a house with the phonograph horn on top and the record on the bottom, and I just put it on the back of it because I wanted it to look like official. And I played 3 acoustic shows. We did a CD release party at the house, which featured acoustic sets by Phil Boyd, Ben Otilke, and JT Fremont. And then I closed. And it was just a backyard family event. And there's videos of that show on this channel. I'm told that someone has a file of Phil's entire set, at least. I took video of one of each of them, and then I think a few of my songs got recorded. But we had a good turnout for that. We had about 30 people show up, mostly family and Benson people and stuff like that. But I got interviewed by the KSCR radio station. I went to St. Cloud, played open mic. Yeah, just kind of like tried to do an independent artist kind of thing back in 2015. But Disc Mill Records at that point, like I knew what a label was from going to the Institute of Production Recording and getting my associate's degree there in engineering and production. I took business classes, so I knew what a label was and what a label did, but I didn't really have an interest in building one. I just still wanted to be an artist strictly at that point, and slapped the logo on the back of this record to try and make myself feel like I had an official thing. And made 100 copies and sold 15 through Bandcamp, and sold like 3, I think, in all the acoustic shows I played. And then the rest through the years just got given away to whoever I thought wanted one. And I started using it as a business card because later on I realized that as a label I could show this shrink wrapped sleeve CD to a band and be like, hey, I know how to help you make this thing happen, so we can go this far. When I pressed that record, it got put on 60 online stores worldwide. I don't know what most of them are, and the ones that I am really aware of are Google Play and Spotify. I used a company called Symphonic Distribution by the recommendation of Copycats Media out of Minneapolis, who pressed this to CD for me. I borrowed $200 from Anthony to press it, and when we had the CD release party, I had $200 in my checking account, so I ripped it out of the ATM and handed it to him, and I said, thank you very much. But yeah, I would say with the number of copies sold online and overall, I mean, it broke even at least, and maybe put a little extra gas money in when I went to those acoustic shows, but other than that, I didn't really think much about it. The years kind of went on, and it was 2017, so 2 years ago now, I moved out of the house that I was in and into a 1-bedroom apartment in Benson. And I had a studio at that house. I brought all the gear with me and set up in, it was kind of like a makeshift closet kind of deal. And the Mac G5 that I had as my main recording machine at that time stopped working. Once it got moved and plugged back in, it fired up once, wouldn't recognize the Mackie board, and was just toast. It started giving me red lights. I called every computer tech I knew, and they all said, it's done. So I threw it in the dumpster and stayed good friends with Anthony. He had bought the studio monitors I was using. He had left microphones that he was letting me use. And I had a Dell computer that I managed to put Reaper on, so I could do a little bit. I had a USB microphone that I could record with into that computer, but it has Windows XP on it, and it's super old, and it was really limited in what you could do. So Anthony eventually picked up a Tascam hard disk recorder because he knew that I was going to continue working on music and wanted to help support that. He was playing guitar in the Robin Hood Hills for a couple of years at that point, and just liked supporting the recording process that I was working on. So eventually, in that time at the 1-bedroom apartment, I was driving van for the Benson School, special needs van, and writing like crazy, going through turmoil. And Chuck Evenson got a hold of me, and he said that I knew he was a bass player, that he liked classic rock, but other than that, I never really hung out with him. I pretty much just sold him off sale when I worked at the Benson liquor store. But he said that he would like to do some recording, and he knew I went to school for it. And he actually lived right next to the apartment building that I was living in. So it was like perfect. And he's like, what's your rate? And I'd been paid to record before when I was in the cities. I had access to one nice studio and my school studios. I never charged for the recording I did at school, but if I recorded at the Devil's Workshop in Minneapolis, I would ask for the rate that the studio needed for the weekend to rent it, and then $50 a day for myself. And that I did 2 sessions there, so I'd been paid to record, like it was kind of a job, but it was never any sort of livable income. But Chuck offering to record for a rate really inspired me at a time that I needed it, because I was feeling really destitute, and he was making me feel like my degree and the passion that I had for the music industry had monetary value still, and it was really important. I was making enough money at the Benson School, driving the van to pay bills and groceries and yada yada, but there was very little extra, and there were times that I was short and needed something to eat, man, and it would just happen, if it was God speaking or what. Chuck would send a message, hey, let's record this day. And I would tell him $10 an hour, and he'd say, okay, 5 hours. And that $50 would get me by in groceries for, 2 weeks. I could make that stretch. So really, it was inspiring. And once guys like Benno and Jake and Adam Ness and Tyler, for sure, when they all kind of got word that Scott was recording again, it was great for me to reconnect with them, and I started working on songs like Tough Guy Tool with Benno at that time, and I was working with Terry Phillips a lot too. We were working with Chuck on his One Nation project and doing the best we could to make his song sound great with the equipment we had, and the Tascam worked really well. Transferring tracks from the Tascam to the Dell worked really well, and I was able to get some pretty good mixes. So from there, Benno found a 2-bedroom apartment, asked me if I wanted to split it with him. I was paying $500 a month for rent, and there I would have been paying $3, plus some not living alone and being a weirdo. And I knew if I lived with Benno, I was going to get more recording done, so it seemed like a good move. And there was a bay room, basically, that was easily 6 times the size of the closet I was recording in. And we both knew, like, that's the studio spot. That's where the desk is going to go. It's going to be great. And so I moved in with Benno. It was like March 2017-ish. Yeah. And we got to work. We started recording and mixing far deeper and putting in more hours studio time wise, and getting quality results that I hadn't seen in my own recording at that point. And I was talking to Benno one day after work. We were just kind of relaxing, and I was like, okay, so I'm still recording for hire for Chuck, and I'm kind of in his band situation, but I'm also working on these tracks with you that I really like. And now we just met Brenna Richter, and she's great, and Phil's around. Like, what do I do? Like, do I start a recording company? Do I start a studio? What am I supposed to do with this? Because there's something here. And he's like, well, what happened to the Disc Mill Records idea? It's like, that was a good idea. Like, a label is what makes the most sense for including everybody in what you want to do, and being able to kind of pick and choose what you work on, and not having to hassle people for money, but, down the road making money on the back end by getting a cut of the sales. I was like, yeah, I think that would be freaking awesome if we could make that happen. So I started reading my business plan book from IPR that I saved. I saved all my IPR books, which the engineering books, they come in handy now. And the business book became my best friend for a few weeks, and I followed the exercises and tried my best to formulate, how does this thing make money? And I came up with some plans that made sense, and I looked at what Drink Streams and Songs did, because it monetized my YouTube page. It got me streams on Spotify and Google Play and wherever else around the world that people are listening to it. I don't even know, but I could see in the account on that page that there was money in there. And I'm like, it's not a lot, because very few people even know this record exists. But if we posted something through that channel that people caught on to, well, yeah, I mean, that could be some real livable money. So that's one revenue stream. So that from March of 2007 until September, I continued to drive van for the school, and I recorded in all my free time. I just would meet people. I met Phoenix on 5th that summer, who turned into Flower Talk. I met, Brenna was the big one. Brenna, like working on Start Over with Brenna was a game changer for all of us. We had so many people work together on that track, and I got in touch with my IPR classmate, Tony Williamette, who runs Minnehaha Recording Company in Minneapolis now. He mastered it, and we got to hear what does $40 mastering sound like versus apartment mastering, and there was a clear difference. Got back together with JT Fremont and mastered Sexennial Rex. I mastered Benno's collection of songs recorded between 2009 and 2014. I think is what we're calling that one. I'm not sure. The big goal has been to put out a compilation, and still working on that. But Roy Good came to the apartment one night. I recorded 2 tracks of his, and that is whose house I'm in right now. So it obviously turned out to be a good relationship there. Recorded a handful of Terry's demos. Had a great time working on Phil songs. Always have and always will. Yeah, it was a great summer. I spent 6 weeks specifically just working on music. I decided not to get a summer job when the school year ended, and I knew I would drive van in the fall, but I didn't have a plan for the summer. And I had enough money coming in by the end of the school year that I thought I could make it through the summer, and I was about 6 weeks short, but for 6 weeks I specifically worked on music, and I dedicated 3 weeks of that to my album Just Feel Love, which is the follow-up to Drink Streams and Songs. And I listened to it, and it's still not done, but I also listened to it in other ways, and it's exactly the way it should be for what it is. It's just, it was a powerful record that I had a lot of friends help on, and I'm looking forward to manufacturing that and probably remixing it and retracking drums and doing a lot of stuff. But in September of 2017, Discmill Records moved to Hancock because I had started waiting tables at Buddy's and bartending there and helping in the kitchen, and school year started and yada yada yada, and it was busy and not spending enough time in the studio, but trying to as much as I could. And we held our first Discmill Records meeting, which for me was just wanting to get all of the artists that we had met in that from early 2017 until then, basically like the first real year of growth. I wanted to get everybody together in the house at one time and just make a bunch of food and jam and network and just figure out what is Discmill Records, like what is this vibe, what's our culture, what do we feel like. And we surprisingly had like 20, I would say roughly, those of you that were there remember, it was a packed house and acoustic sets and rappers and full band jamming in the basement, trying to like go up in the attic, figure out where all the cables are and stuff. I mean, it was madness, but it was great. And everybody that night knew what Discmill Records was. And it's like, it's kind of family, it's kind of friends, it's just ignored artists. You know what I mean? It's just people who really love music and really love working on music that nobody cares about. But everybody knows Scott does. Everybody knows that they're equally important to Scott. And that's why I opened my home to everyone that day. And we did a show that was the first kind of like, hey, let's try and play places again, that January of 2018. And that was when we met Weather Check, which was a game changer for us too, because we finally knew a band in Minneapolis that was playing regularly that was really good and really unique. which is kind of our thing. Like, we're not genre specific, we're people specific. Like, we're specific on the people that we know and care about and have the work ethic and drive to build something of themselves. We've all had limitations as far as what we can afford to do, but the passion doesn't change. And when we see that passion in someone, they're in. Like, if they're not already signed to somebody, but they have the passion and the drive, we can cultivate talent. We can engineer audio-wise, listenable tracks, radio-ready tracks. But, if they're blowing smoke, you can feel it right away. And we work with honest, genuine people. And Weather Check laid it down that night. And there's video of that show on this channel too. And that was the Late Season's first show, which is a band that was kind of birthed from the first Disc Mill Records meeting, because Evan came, but then Tyler was here and Bennett was here, and everybody was just jamming with everybody and having a good time. And it was like a month later, they're like, hey, we're all in the Hutchinson area, so we're just going to go ahead and do this Late Season thing. And I was like, good, I can record it. That's what I want to do anyway. So let me know how I can help. And yeah, we played that show, and subsequently met Matthew Kaiser, who became a huge contact for me because, he was just hanging out at the show in Biscay, and I just sat down with him and was like, hey, what's your story, man? Why are you here? Like, this is a weird show in the middle of nowhere, and you seem to be really enjoying the Robin Hood Hills, and these other people. Like, I'm the Scot guy, so tell me about yourself, And I found out that he's one of the main kind of rock engineers in the Hutchinson area. And through that, he does Kaiser Fest every year, and he asked me and Anthony to do sound for it in the spring, and that was great. And since then, Kaiser has sent me, I don't know, 5, 6, 10, either live sound or online, like exactly what I want to do. Like, hey man, this track needs strings. Can you do that? Heck yes, I can. He emails me the track. An hour later, I email him back with strings. This is what you meant, right? Perfect, dude. It's like me and Kaiser have developed a great relationship, and I really enjoy every project that he gives me. And every time we get a chance to hang out, I always feel very blessed to spend time with him. He's just a great guy. But yeah, more just writing and recording and still trying to build a label. But I was battling between the idea of it being a sole proprietorship or an LLC. And an LLC would basically mean that other people would be involved in the decision making. And I got to a point where I thought it was important that it wasn't just me making the calls on what are we pressing next, who's playing what shows, who gets studio time next, whatever. I don't pick favorites with people on the label. Not that there's really anybody specifically on the label, but if you're in the group chat, which is up to about 35 people now, that's close enough to being on the label. It means involved. At this point, it doesn't mean contractually. It just means I know you and we work together. So if you hear me say on the label, it just means that at this point. That's obviously about to change, I guess. But yeah, I just kept working on it and eventually got to the point where I thought an LLC was a better idea. So the very first person I approached was Dave. And I was like, Dave Shaver, he's Zoom's manager. He's booked shows for us. He's been a liaison for people who aren't communicating enough and need to talk more and work together more because he sees something in them. And I value his friendship. I value his opinion. I value his input. I respect his positions on things, and I like his decisiveness and the fact that he's not afraid to share unpopular opinions. It's just alpha. It just is. And he does booking and promotions, which Anthony has always said, that's all you need. Like, you've got the engineering stuff. You'll always get better at the engineering stuff. You're never going to perfect it, but it's always going to get better and better the more that you do it. But you don't have that side of promotions and booking. Like, you need more shows, stuff like that. And I had played with some merchandise, the first real year, 2017-ish, trying to make it a label after Benno told me I should. I made 30 shirts. I didn't make them. I paid somebody to make them and sold them online and sold off the rest of we called it Brotherhood. It was a sampler of me, acoustic, Jake acoustic, Benno acoustic, and the 3 Robin Hood Hill songs that just had the head logo on the disc, and I put it in paper sleeves, and I had some buttons and stickers manufactured and just kind of sold these packages and stuff, and it was okay, but it wasn't as much a business, and I felt like I was shit hustling t-shirts. Like, I'd become a t-shirt salesman and not a music salesman, and the whole thing of merchandise just got kind of frustrating. So once the label seemed to be getting more established, the Christmas of 2017, so going into 2018, that winter, I gave away all of the merchandise that I had to friends and family. I was just like, I don't know if this thing's ever going to become something. I don't know if it's ever going to get bigger than it is, but I don't want merchandise that's being sold that doesn't have the TM on it. We don't have an LLC or a sole proprietorship or a DBA or anything. I just want it gone and in the hands of people who really want it. And I'll make more stuff when we get some of the business side of things taken care of. We approached Anthony about being a partner because he's contributed a lot of gear. And he said, "You don't need me, but thanks for asking." And it was like, yeah, I know what you mean, but okay. I just like it. He's got a great opinion. He's a really positive person, and he's really technically knowledgeable. And even though he's not a co-owner, he's still a vital person to me as far as just music knowledge and jamming goes. He almost any band that I put in front of him, I'm like, hey, these guys asked me to play guitar for them. They need another guitar player. You want to try it? Yeah, sounds good. I'll be there. Like, it just that kind of go-getter attitude is something that I need around. So Anthony chose not to participate in the business side of things, but as far as music-wise, he's very involved. He plays guitar for the Robin Hood Hills. He plays bass for Being Human in Public. He's been asked to play guitar for One Nation. He's been asked to play guitar for Stellarborn. I send mixes to him, and they're not done until he says they're good. Like, that's kind of the standard bearer that I use for my own mixing. So, we talked to Nick Benson about being a partner, like a 10% partner. He decided he'd rather be contract, but he was asked to help with website, graphic design, things of that nature. He plays guitar for Being Human in Public, and he's become the main writer because we're playing his riffs now. And he's in Hancock, he's in town, and he'll obviously help with anything that we ask. Like, we need to move gear, we need to do inventory, we need to just whatever, we need an assistant engineer for a recording session. He'll push buttons and hang out. So Nick he declined the offer, but very vital too, very important, and absolutely value my friendship that I've made with him. He's one of the newest people that's come into the fold, and it's been great getting to know him, and I'm very excited to see where that relationship leads in the future. The only other person that we considered being a partner was Will Campbell, and it just didn't seem like a good fit, but he's willing to be a contract engineer. So we can utilize his studio space for sessions. He will engineer sessions for hire. I plan on sending any projects I either don't have time for or maybe aren't my cup of tea. Will gladly take them, I know. And I might book him just to record me, because I've been engineering my own stuff since I was, 15 years old. And I'd like to see what it's like to sit in the artist chair and have an engineer just do their job and see what the difference is in how a song comes out versus when I do it at home by myself. and have an engineer do it. So I'm looking forward to working with Will. Like I say, though he's not a partner or an owner, he's still going to be a contract engineer, and we will be certainly helping him with booking. And we've discussed manufacturing, specifically the remnants of the Afterbirth record to vinyl, because I want to press a death metal record really badly. I think it would be great. So yeah, it just came down to me and Dave. It was just like, I'm engineering, live sound and studio, your booking and promotions and website stuff, and I mean everything that entails promotions. I mean, that's merchandise, that's online, that's whatever. That's image stuff that I don't know about and probably shouldn't have any part of. And booking, I don't know any venue owners. I don't know how to talk to them. I get very uncomfortable talking to them about money, and I don't like deciding who plays what shows and what. It's just, I like compressor ratios and reverbs and things of that nature. I like microphones a lot. I really like choosing microphones and seeing what they do. That's where Scott should be. So, yeah, we've been working on a contract now for, I feel like it's been about 3 months, because it was about the beginning of December that we started talking about it and writing it a month later. And we spoke yesterday and said, we will finish writing it. We'll have time when we file anyway. We've figured out most of what we need to have figured out anyway. Let's file this week. And he said, how about Thursday? And I was at work today and I was like, hey, guess what? There's money and I can do this with my phone. So how about right frickin' now? And he's like, yep, no problem. So me and Dave Shaver are 50-50 partners. We are co-owners of Disc Mill Records, officially founded February 27th, 2019. Cheers to that.